So this will go for about like maybe 40 minutes or more.
Yeah.
And then
so you're cranking out episodes this weekend.
Yeah.
Oh, it's awesome.
You guys are like my Pokemon. Like I'm like trying to just fucking catch you guys. Yeah.
It's cool.
What's up, everybody? I know that we just released an episode a week ago, but we were backed up. We had some downtime before, and I just want to get the rest of these EVO interviews out there before it gets too old. And so we have two more interviews. We're going to have this one with Markman, and then I'll be announcing the next guest very soon here. And then after that, we'll be all done with everything that we've had in the pipe, and we'll just start with some fresh interviews over here. I already have a few guests lined up I'm going to be talking to. So again, this was all done before the apocalypse, but I think it's still very timely, and it's kind of cool to see an interview from one of the last events that was able to happen. Quick announcements before we go into the interview. I'm streaming on Twitch now. If you guys want to hang out with me there, go to twitch.tv/tastelesstv. We appreciate it if you do support us on Patreon. It's patreon.com/tastelesspodcast. The money there goes to pay to make the podcast and support the people that also help me. So this interview was done with Markman, who was also one of the people that set me up to be able to get into EVO and wander around and meet all these other awesome people that I got to talk to, and some of them, of course, I got to interview. He's a hugely influential guy. I've known him, like not well, but we've known of each other for a long time. But this was the first time I really got to sit down and actually talk to him. Super cool guy. I really appreciate him hooking me up this EVO. And without further ado, here is the episode. Anyways, let's just go ahead and start. If you see me checking my phone, I'm not bored. I'm just trying to gauge how long I've been talking for. Okay. So I feel like a lot of people know about you, know who you are, have seen your casting or seen you working at events, but I think most people don't know exactly what you do. So like, just to start this whole thing off, what is your job or jobs?
Cool. Well, that's by design. I for the longest time, I was working with Mad Catz as one of their product managers, and then eventually became their community and sponsorship manager. And I think that's really the last of what people knew, like what I did career-wise.
That's true for me, actually.
Cool. All right, cool.
How I understand everything's working.
Yeah. It's consistent then. So Mad Catz went under. A lot of people know they actually went under. They're back now recently, but it's a different company. I got laid off in early 2016, and that was a tough time because it was a tough time for like a day.
Oh, really?
For a day, and the next day I got like job offers everywhere, but. For that one day, I remember thinking about it. I knew it was coming because, the company hasn't been doing too well financially. And then we obviously have like all this internal data. So we knew there were some things that were going to change. So after that day, I ended up making the decision for myself that I'm going to I'm going to do me. I'm going to do as much work as I can within the gaming industry and see where I can take this. I've never been my own boss. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to start my own company and I'm going to take it where I can. And that was 2016. So we're in 2020 now. And now I probably have 9 different specific jobs that I manage. So yeah. It's a lot. And I guess just to talk a little bit about it. So I'm in charge of global business development for the EVO brand, for EVO Championship Series, so for Triple Perfect. I report to Mr. Wizard, who I believe you talked to just recently.
Yeah, just earlier today.
He's my boss, but he's pretty hands off on what I do. He was the first person I talked to after I got laid off at Mad Catz, and he made the decision, and I like to call it the best business decision he's ever made, is to hire me full time to help form the business for EVO. A lot of people might not recall, but maybe in 2016 when that EVO came around, it was kind of a transition year. We've been in Vegas for 10 years at that point, and EVO has always been a tournament, a competition. But it never really had like a convention aspect. It never really had anything to do other than play in the tournament games. And that kind of started changing in 2016 moving forward, where now EVO is more of a spectacle. Aside from being a tournament, it's always going to be a tournament first and foremost. But now we have reveals from different companies. They kind of treat it like, their celebration. They want to talk about new games all the time. And they also really want to kind of treat it as a fan festival. And that's kind of what we've transformed EVO to, is working with the publishers and developers that kind of create these games that we love and really making a platform for them to directly engage with the fans. And I think that's one of the key things that myself and the team has brought once joining EVO, that we really kind of took it to the next level. And it's been growing ever since. We've seen insane amounts of growth, and that's one of the things I'm most proud of. So that's one of my jobs. That's probably the job I put more of my personal time into, just because I like it so much. I do product development still. I still work on creating Arcade Sticks. I created Arcade Sticks with Mad Catz and helped design.
You've got a massive collection.
I have the biggest collection in the world, and if anyone can prove me wrong, I would love to see their collection. But I don't think so. I have like, last I counted,
You're my favorite Instagram person.
Oh, really?
Man. I love watching the shit that you're posting on there, man. You always are buying cool shit.
It's kind of weird because like I focus on like stuff that I love, just collecting stuff, right? So I don't care who's seeing it. I just post it up there. I post, maybe sometimes I have spurts where I just post a bunch of stuff a day, but it's arcade sticks, food, video games, art, sneakers. But I make arcade sticks. I make video game controllers. I still do that. I currently work with Razer as kind of one of the heads of their fighting game stuff, community products. So I work on that. So I've released a few arcade sticks with Razer since my time with Mad Catz, but I've also worked with Victrix, PDP, Hori, anyone that's in the fighting game industry or in the industry of fighting games and competitive games. I've helped make a controller in some aspects. So chances are, if you have an arcade stick and you're playing video games at home, I probably touched that in some way.
How did you get into the I guess can you call it peripheral business? Like how did you end up working on that?
At Mad Catz. So that was a big accident. You know, Mad Catz has in the past has never had a good name.
Mad Catz. So because there's people that are going to be younger than us listening to this, but Mad Catz, the game controller is what I go to initially. But that was like the controller that when you went to your friend's house and they had like the actual like Sega controller,
the first party controller, right?
Yeah, the first part, yeah. But then you had to use their second thing, and then it was never as good. It was kind of notorious for being not as quality, but cheaper and more affordable.
Yeah, it's the one that you didn't want to use, right?
Right.
Mad Catz had this. I guess that was what they were known for, making cheap controllers that weren't as reliable as maybe the first party brands. But Mad Catz made the conscious decision probably in 2007, 2008 to start creating high quality products at a higher price point.
This was like a little bit before Street Fighter 4.
Right before Street Fighter 4.
I remember. I'm a huge fan of Street Fighter 4 when that came out. That was like what got me through waiting for fucking StarCraft 2 to finally come out, because that was when I finally got to kind of get my career moving forward. But I remember following in the news the Mad Catz was making a controller, and a lot of people were rolling their eyes.
Yeah, me too.
But then it, I think it was listening to Gutex. He was like, "No, it's good. They did a good job making this stick."
Yeah, that was like when Mad Catz started changing its image. So it kind of started. I want to credit the Street Fighter range of products, and thanks to the trust of the people at Capcom. Seth Killian was there at the time, and I have lots of love for Seth. He's one of the original members of the EVO board that really kind of helped form what EVO was and kind of competitive fighting games along the U.S. But he has always been an inspiration for me, and he had enough trust in me because him and I were really big onto, I guess, the tech behind peripherals and just people making their own custom arcade sticks and controllers and stuff like that. So we had a lot of back and forth, especially before the product was officially announced, and we worked very closely with Seth Killian to kind of make sure that we created a product that the community would stand behind. And it kind of blew up more than we expected. We launched the arcade sticks with Mad Catz, and it's immediately sold out. And it started getting kind of crazy where you would see these things on eBay. It's a $150 arcade stick, but you see it reselling for like $400, $500, and we're like, wow, we're onto something, because these guys are getting kind of crazy. They want to be able to buy not just one of these arcade sticks, they want to buy 2 or 3 so they can play with their friends. Yeah. And it kind of became its own thing where Mad Catz started releasing, more and more iterations, different limited editions, but we had to do it in a tasteful way. So that kind of became a sub business that I became in charge of within Mad Catz. So
when it comes to making equipment, and I mean, it's always been a fascinating thing, right? Because there's always bells and whistles that they put onto the gear.
Yeah.
But there is something to using like a really high quality product. What is, in your opinion, if you're making a fighting game stick, like what is the most challenging part? Is it trying to distinguish yourself from other people making that product, or is it trying to get the right materials, or is it an aesthetic thing?
It's a lot of things. So for different people, right? There was never really a standard, I would say, until maybe when Street Fighter 4 came out and when the Mad Catz products came out. Yeah. We really wanted to match what the arcade spec was, so we went with the the Vuelix layout, the Sanwa parts. And before that, you know, it was really hard to get Japanese style arcade sticks in the US. A lot of people had, you know, custom American style bat top arcade sticks, hat parts. They had all kinds of crazy sticks that they imported from Japan. Nothing that was really standardized, but it wasn't until Mad Catz kind of stepped to the scene that it kind of changed the entire industry, where companies like Hori, companies like even, you know, PDP or Pelican at the time, they started paying attention to the Japanese aspect or the Japanese arcade aspect, and they started more kind of catering towards what the community or the fighting game community would want, and that kind of changed everything. So it was an interesting time, because I was a big geek about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it was just like me geeking out and creating stuff that I wanted to do personally, and it ended up, you know, being very successful. It didn't make a lot of money for Mad Catz. You know, fighting games just not as big as other games. You know, Street Fighter 4 was probably the last big one that we really had on the community level, where it would see such a boom where it would bring in new people. Since then, you know, we've seen a lot of games sell maybe 1 million or 2 million copies, but there really hasn't been such a huge boom. But I got to give a shout out to Mortal Kombat, because they always sell a lot, and I think a lot of that comes with nostalgia, and that's what Street Fighter 4 kind of brought it to the mix.
I think with Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, those are the two games that are actually ingrained in like all of our culture. You know, fatalities and just. I mean, there's so many parts of Street Fighter that are there. Did you grow up going to arcades?
Oh, yeah.
As a kid?
Yeah. I was an arcade kid, so I was born in 82. And I spent a lot of my weekends or a lot of my days after school going to the arcades or going to the malls, going to convenience stores. Convenience stores used to have arcade machines.
Yeah.
And that was the good old days.
It kind of makes me depressed, because I loved going to local arcades.
Yeah.
And I'm from Kansas City, but even in Kansas City, there was like maybe 3 or 4 arcades that you could roll into and just spend a whole day playing at.
Now there's like none. You'd be lucky to find one.
Yeah.
I mean, even in Asia, you know, in Korea, I'm sure you've seen there's always a bunch of arcades. But for certain fighting games, like maybe Street Fighter wasn't the biggest, but you'd always have a place to play King of Fighters or Tekken.
There's nothing worse than going to an arcade and they have the wrong fucking games. You know, when you walk in, you're like, what the fuck?
You
like
make
Dave
the round.
and Buster's in America, you're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
These games are terrible.
Yeah.
You know, like, but yeah, it's. So you sorry, I'm very passionate about this, because every time I go to any place, if there's an arcade, I want to step inside and be like, what games are here?
Take a look, right? You might as well make the rounds and be like, okay, they got one of those. I know where I'm going to spend my extra time.
Yeah. So, what games did you play in arcades besides fighting games?
Besides fighting games,
Yeah.
I love the side-scrolling beat-em-up game. So like Simpsons, the arcade game, X-Men, the 6-player arcade game.
Yeah.
Sunset Riders was a big one that I played over and over. Double Dragon, Final Fight, all those games that the side-scrolling beat-em-ups were something that I really got into. And obviously you were playing against the computer, really trying to progress further in the game.
Yeah.
But then when I saw Street Fighter 2 for the first time, and I saw you were playing against the guy next to you, that blew my mind. I was still fairly young at the time. I think I was like 10 years old when I first saw that.
Was that intimidating for you, like trying to compete against other people?
It definitely was, because I was 10 years old, but there were a lot, the kids that were playing, or the teenagers that were playing, they were a lot older than me. So it was a bit intimidating at the time. But the cool part was these guys were like, you know, kind of teaching each other the moves and how to do things, right? And that's something that I never experienced, is the social aspect of playing in arcades. And I think that's really what made me remember and love it growing up as a kid.
Yeah, when I was really young, I got into rhythm games at
nice.
the arcade. This is very random, especially for Kansas, but we had Beat Mania in the arcade. And so I liked doing that, but I would always see people playing Marvel vs. Capcom 2. And I remember specifically just asking an older guy, like, can you just show me? Like, it was too intimidating to just like try to fake it. And I didn't have the game at home. And when you're that young, you're always like beholden to like what your parents will buy for you, or you know what I mean? And
you get what you get, right?
You get what you get, right? Like, you better hope they know what they're doing on Christmas, because otherwise you're screwed. But yeah, asking for some guidance on that. And so you took that experience in fighting games, and then how are you here now? I mean, was it just you didn't want to get a normal job, or were you passionate about peripherals, or what?
I thought about it for a long time. You know, I didn't even want the job at Mad Catz, because, you know, because of the brand, I was kind of scared. Yeah, the stigma at the time. I was like, man, I don't want to tell people I work for Mad Catz.
Yeah.
So I started working for them just because I needed to make money. I was a single father at the time. I had a child very early on.
Boy
when
or girl?
I was a girl. So I have a daughter now. She's 18 years old. So it kind of tells you my age. When I was 19 years old, I had a kid.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I'm going to school, but I'm not making enough money to make ends meet. I have to be able to support my family. So I decided to, pursue a job with the local company Mad Catz, which was in San Diego. And even though I didn't like the idea of working for them, it was like the lesser of two evils for me. It's either go work for Sony Computer Entertainment and be a game tester. And what everyone told me is like, if you start testing games, you're going to start thinking about games differently. You might not enjoy them as much.
I've actually heard that.
I don't want that to happen.
I've heard that before. Yeah,
I never want to hate video games. I love video games.
Yeah.
So I never wanted to do that. So I ended up going with Mad Catz. Like, I could hate controllers. I'm fine with hating controllers.
Yeah.
The first party controller is always going to be good. So I'll hate the third party controllers.
Yeah.
And then it just ended up transforming and snowballing into this thing where one day someone asked me, rest in peace, this guy was the guy that really taught me the peripheral business. He was my old boss. He asked me if I knew anything about fighting games. And I was like, shut the fuck up. I know everything about fighting games. And then I ended up schooling him in one day on arcade sticks, kind of showing him little bits and pieces of my collection. And then he asked me to join the team to help create the Street Fighter 4 stuff.
Really?
Yes. Right then and there. He said he Googled me and he saw me all over the Shoryuken forums talking about arcade sticks. So, it was easy for him to convince him. So, and then like a few months later, I was in charge of all the Street Fighter stuff.
So how much are you on the road now?
I travel a lot. I'm sure you've had your experiences with travel, but I hate to say
and
this.
I've had my limits as well, where I'm just like, this is too much.
For the past 10 years, I probably travel anywhere between 40 to 50, I would say 40 to 45 weekends out of the year. It's a lot. So I rarely get to see my family. I get dumped all the time. I can never hold a relationship.
Yeah.
But I travel a lot and that's usually for work. For work. But I mean, it's fighting games don't stop, and fighting games is something that I really love. So there's some times where there's peak season, then there's a little bit of a lull, in the end of the year before the new tours start and stuff like that. But I mean, there's always stuff to do. I mean, now we have EVO Japan in January, so I'm always doing something. I'm always in Japan. I'm here once or twice a month.
What is the hardest part about traveling constantly?
For me, I don't think traveling is hard at all. I'm used to it. So for me, it's just adapted. Like I'm very used to it. The hard part is keeping a nice and honest communication and relationship with my family and friends.
Yeah.
And that's very hard because I'll see them like, once every now and then. I mean, my daughter, like, I feel like she doesn't even know me as well other than when I'm at home. And I'm only at home, like, maybe I'm during the week. Yeah. But I'm never there, like, I guess when she probably wants me to be there.
Right.
Which is rough. But I mean, it's the balance. Like, do you want your family to have a good living, or do you want to... I chose that. I wanted to make sure that they were taken care of.
Do you feel like you're a person that is okay then with hotels in general? I know I always feel like there's two people with traveling. There's people that are really able to adapt to the hotel lifestyle, and then people that really don't like it. Like,
I'm fine with hotels. Yeah, I'm totally used to it. I have my routines. I love, I don't mind traveling at all. It's like, it's just another process, I guess, step that I need to do to get the job done or to go to meetings and stuff like that.
So, doing an event like EVO, obviously this is such a big undertaking. Do you ever find yourself getting like stressed out or sick before events, or do events themselves stress you? I was talking about this a little bit with Mr. Wizard, but like, event coordinator is actually among the most stressful jobs in the world.
I would say no. I actually work with a very strong team, whether it's on the production side to make sure, sponsors and partners are happy, or just on the biz dev side. I have a very strong team that I work with, so I got to give a lot of love to them. Yeah. I wouldn't be able to travel like this if my teams that I work with weren't as good, because I can just actually go out, help facilitate and create new opportunities in meetings and bring it back to them and ask them to execute. So we have a well-oiled machine, and if it was just me and maybe Mr. Wizard, it probably wouldn't happen. But we have a strong backing of a team mindset that we're able to kind of execute, and that's how it's been for the past few years. So I'm very lucky in that regard, and I think that's the beauty of it. We're creating a new path that's really not a normal, like, you don't go to school for this kind of stuff. Right. This is something that you just go based on feel, and if you can bring your colleagues, your friends, guys that kind of grew up with you kind of playing these video games, and take it to a level where they can actually live off of it, I think it's a beautiful thing, man. This is
a very odd industry, because I'll have people ask me like what it's like to get into this, and honestly, I don't know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not. even the people that I'll try to get advice from, this is more when I was younger, but like I think that's not right. You know what I mean? You don't know, but is it scary for you at times working in esports? Is it? Do you like the fact that it's so there is no handbook for this?
Yeah, well, I mean, everyone's kind of forging their own path, and you know, it's crazy because we've seen many esports companies or companies within esports come and go.
Yes,
there's so many. Yes. I'm pretty sure we're in the hundreds, if not the thousands, by now.
I think we're at the point too where there was a period where all the companies are trying to take control of their esports, and it seems like now we're watching that recede.
Yeah,
would you agree with that? Like,
I would definitely agree. Yeah,
I know PUBG Corp is backing down on PUBG. I don't know how true this is, but I've heard that Riot is going to be more hands-off with some of their future titles. What is your take on publishers and their desire for control or to try to navigate where their esport goes?
Well, see, that's the thing is like I feel like for a lot of these publishers and developers, they also don't have a guidebook. They see what other companies are doing, so they're trying to create something. They're trying to be first to market, right? They're trying to really create something that they hope is going to be something that makes money for them, right?
Right.
And 9 times out of 10, it doesn't.
Yeah, it's. I don't think people appreciate this, but that the idea of a video game company becoming a TV production company / sports management, I don't know, whatever the fuck you call it. They would run like the NFL basically. Yeah. That is not a natural transition, and it's insane to see these companies try to do it and the mistakes they make and
the amount of turnover, the amount of people that you know that were working for them one year and then the next year they're working for another company.
Yeah, or these, for instance, now they've been trying to get a lot of former sports, like TV network executive people to come on board, and that hasn't seemed to have been successful. And that they're really, even if you ran a sports network, this isn't exactly the same thing as esports. When you're out here doing an event like this, one thing that's unique is that there's all these different publishers. What is it like doing an event where you have to deal with all these different companies? They all have totally different expectations out of you, right? I'm sure they all want their game to be the last game of the tournament. Mm-hmm. How do you manage that?
It's very complicated. So one of the things that EVO prides itself in, and I think maybe this is unique for a lot of fighting game events, is it's all about the community first. Yeah. So we tend to cater to the community that's actually showing up for the event, right, and that's actually going to be there, and that kind of overrules for us what the publisher or what the developer will want. And it's an easy, I don't want to call it a scapegoat kind of decision, but it's for us, we have to serve the community that's really taking us to where we are right now.
Right.
We didn't always have publisher developer support. This didn't happen until I would say maybe the last 7 to 10 years.
But before that period, was it a little bit weirder?
Oh yeah, it was definitely a lot weirder.
Oh yeah, the history with Blizzard and StarCraft of Korea is really fascinating because they just, basically illegally put the game on TV and just didn't answer emails. And I understand Blizzard being upset by it, but yeah, it's never been a thing that organically the company decided to put it on TV. It's always happened independently.
It's always happened through the fans and always happened through the community first.
Yeah.
Do you think, honestly, this is an honest question to anyone, do you think Capcom Pro Tour would be where it's at if it not for events like EVO or CEO or Combo Breaker?
No.
It's something obviously that was inspired by what the community was already doing.
Right.
And that's the thing is when a corporation will try to support their game, and I use support in quotation marks, are they really trying to support or are they trying to take advantage of the fact that this is a potential market where they can profit off of and take control over? Kind of like what we've seen with other games, right?
Yeah.
So having to kind of maintain that balance is going to be very difficult for any company because, like you said, there's no guidebook. There's no advice you can give to a company that really will ensure victory or ensure that they're going to make money at the end of the day.
Is there ever how do I say this correctly? There's trends with all these gaming companies.
Yeah.
Right? You'll see this in game development where a couple of years ago, everything was a fucking zombie game.
Zombie games.
It was like, now
we got to go mobile. Now we have to make a phone
Everything's
version.
got to be on a phone. Yeah. The mobile thing. Are there trends that you see fighting game or not fighting game company that you find to be problematic? Like they're going down the wrong path?
Absolutely, and I don't want to put a particular company on blast.
Okay,
but sometimes sometimes I see it. So for me, the problem with a lot of fighting games is they want to grow their install base, right? Yeah. Usually the best time to do that is at the launch of the game, within the shelf life, within the first 3 months, where it's relevant, where you can actually make the most money, where you can put the game out there and not have to discount it just to be able to push and sell copies. So the launch of the game is so compelling. You have to make sure. There's a lot of tick boxes now that companies have to think about. They have to have a good single player experience. They have to have maybe a tutorial that teaches people how to play the game. Yeah. They have to have some type of esports component where someone can go on YouTube or on Twitch and be able to watch, oh, this is how you're supposed to play that game. Right. There's so many things that, kind of have to fall into place for a game to just succeed off the bat, that it makes it very, very difficult for at least a lot of these smaller games and smaller publishers and developers to kind of make their game seem like it's on the level of a Street Fighter or a Tekken and stuff like that. So I think that's a very toxic market, is to kind of treat like, hey, we're gonna be the next Street Fighter. You're definitely not gonna be the next Street Fighter. We're gonna be the next Smash Brothers. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah, well, one of the weird things too is that most games that became successful at esports, they were not intended.
No, it was an accident.
It was an accident.
It's luck. I'll tell you, this industry is luck.
Like if you talk to the guys, I mean, I've talked to the guys at Blizzard, and they would say, like, when they went to Korea and just saw people playing the game this fast and like picking up a reaver and a shuttle and dropping it and letting it dodge shots, they thought, oh, we didn't even.
It wasn't intended.
Yeah, they're like, oh my god, we never even. I mean, StarCraft was supposed to be almost like a little bit of a city builder game in a way, and it was never supposed to be. I mean, even the hotkeys on the keyboard, they weren't gamified. It was just the first letter. You want to make an Overlord, it's O. It's on the right side of the keyboard. You want to make a drone, it's D. And then you see people with their left hand inputting combinations on a keyboard like it's a gamepad. Smash Brothers was a party game. I think Street Fighter,
combos in Street Fighter were a glitch initially from a lot of the designers. Yeah. They were like, this wasn't intended.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, all these games. I mean, Counter-Strike is a weird mod of Half-Life. And
Dota is like a mod.
Dota's a mod of Warcraft 3. Everything is unintended.
Yeah.
To be competitive, and also the fact that bugs are actually, this is going to sound weird, they're actually features in the game. They're actually things that at times enhance the game.
They're blessings.
Yeah. But now we're in an era where, I mean, let's take Overwatch as an example. I know I've been kind of hard on that in this podcast, but that's the one that I think a lot of people are looking at. They announced the esports program.
Yeah, a lot of money behind it.
A lot of money, and look, Team Fortress Classic never organically was pushed like an esport. I mean, there's always been these team shooting games. They're very similar to MOBAs in a lot of ways, with the abilities and the goals that you're trying to accomplish through the game. But people are now announcing esports for games that nobody's asking for.
Yeah. You'll see an esports league for a game that you didn't even know was out yet. Yeah, it's like, wow, cool.
Yeah, I mean, World of Tanks had a big push. I actually casted some World of Tanks, and I had fun doing it. But I remember when they announced it, I thought, yeah, but I mean, is this even? There isn't a.
Did anyone ask for this?
Yeah, did anybody ask for this? Yeah. This is so strange. Yeah, I mean, are things going to backfire for a lot of these companies if everybody is trying to be an esport all the time? And
it already has. I feel like it already has. I mean, we're seeing the shift. We're seeing a paradigm shift in a lot of the way that leagues work, the way that franchising is working now for a lot of things, and it's. I think it's setting a precedence where it's just going to turn away a lot of people, and it's unfortunate. But I mean, I think for me, in my opinion, gaming is going to be eternal. People are always going to be looking to play video games.
The same.
And figure out when the next competitive bug is going to be, like whether it's playing a fighting game, whether it's playing a strategy game, or whether it's playing even a board game online with people. People are always going to find ways to get their fix.
Yeah.
So it's just unfortunate that things like these, and this is a real thing now. Trying to esportsify a game will turn away a lot of people.
I checked Twitter today. And I don't know this game, so maybe it's fucking awesome. But Farm Simulator, there was a tournament, and there's people there, and I don't know this game at all.
And their esports venue and their production is out of control. It's insane.
Yeah. I actually want to go check it out now because I would be like everybody else and joke about this, but then I saw there was an audience, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe there's something here.
That looks like there's more people there than at EVO Japan right now.
So yeah, it's crazy to me. Like just I don't know how companies are kind of jumping on this. Do you feel like as somebody from fighting games, where there's not as much glitz and glamour in a way, do you feel like fighting games are at times behind or ahead of companies that are putting so much money into this. There's so much high production. I mean, EVO, as an example, is very bare bones. I mean, EVO, I think, is one of the events that actually proves that people do just want to watch people play games. Mm-hmm. I mean, this was, do you remember G4 TV?
Oh, yeah. I was a big fan. I was on G4 TV a few times. I was on the arena show, you know, where they had the competition and stuff like that. Yeah. But I only went on there because I asked, like, hey, if you put fighting games on there, we'll play on it.
Oh my God, that's so crazy!
I love that. I love that channel for what it was, because there was nothing on TV.
But they also shied away from games a little bit.
Yeah, they did more of the tech TV stuff.
Yeah. There was always this assumption that, like, well, we can't just put a fucking game on TV the whole time. But excuse me. But a lot of people have. You look at EVO as an example. No, this is proof that we don't need necessarily a ton of B-roll. We don't need a smoke machine. We don't need a laser show. We don't need a band that opens beforehand. We can have it stand on its own.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's no band, there's no light show. Is EVO ahead or behind?
Just particularly speaking on behalf of EVO.
Yeah.
I do not think we're behind. I think we are. We're in a position, EVO is at least, where I hate to say it. This is not something that I'm happy about.
Yeah.
But we can kind of dictate the path of how a game will either live or it'll run away to obscurity.
Right.
And I hate to say that, because as a fighting game fan, I want to see fighting games do well. I want to see every game do well. But the fact of the matter is, we only have this much time, and a finite amount of time throughout a weekend where we can feature only a certain amount of games. We can't feature every single game.
Yeah.
And that's the difficult part, is how do we balance that? How do we balance it in a way where it's going to keep the community happy, but also we have to make, the publishers, developers, and sponsors happy in some way too. So I feel like we have a good control of that balance, and it's worked in a way where our event, viewership-wise, attendance-wise, competitor-wise, it's grown year over year for the past, I want to say, 10 years. I mean, there's been some booms here and there where there would be a big fall-off for a game, but I'd like to attribute that to, just people not wanting to play that game anymore. It's not an EVO thing. This is more of a community thing, and that's why I value the community and the people that are participating in these events so much, is because they're putting their hard-earned money to actually go to an event. This is not like I'm gonna fire up the internet and play online. You go to an event and you actually have to be part of it. You are activating yourself as a member of the community to go out there and participate. And it's cool. Like, if you don't go to events and you just want to watch this kind of stuff, more power to you. But the real thing is, the goal of EVO, and especially broadcasting it, is we want people to be able to go up, get off their ass, go to an event, learn how to play these games, and fight just like everyone else. That competition is what I think sets us apart from a lot of the events where it might be show matches, right? Or it might be another way to sell DLC or whatever. We are, we're not one game. We're not one publisher. We're every game and every publisher are, and we welcome that at EVO.
What about Riot? They're making a fighting game.
Mm-hmm.
They're, out of all the companies, and it pains me to say this because, I'm a guy who does Blizzard games, but they seem to be the ones that have succeeded. Excuse me. They are making a fighting game.
Yeah.
They have poured incredible amounts of money into League of Legends, and that is basically the biggest game in the world.
Yep.
What is going to happen to the FGC if they step in?
It's going to do, I think, first and foremost, it's going to bring in a lot of new eyes, right? Riot and especially their IP. It's going to bring in a lot more eyes than what we're used to. And, we're talking about a game that has, hundreds of millions of players versus an event that has maybe, anywhere between 10 to 15,000 players, right? So it's going to bring in a new, level of scale that we're not used to. But at the end of the day, any game that's going to be at EVO, or any game within the fighting game community, it's going to live or die by whether or not it's good.
Yeah.
So it's going to come down to that. If the game is good and people can enjoy it, people will support it. People will show up and compete for it. That's the metric we kind of actually use, is the viewership, if whether or not people are going to go actually enter and play in the tournaments. And it's not just EVO. It's all the tournaments throughout the year that lead up to EVO or that are beyond EVO. So I don't think it's going to change too many things. We obviously want to see it succeed. I just hope it succeeds in a way where it can enhance the experience for a lot of people that go to events like EVO or that enjoy fighting games.
Let's take another company like Nintendo.
Yeah.
I mean, they're, I think, actually the polar opposite of Riot, right? I mean, and they're, obviously they're culturally I think probably the most influential video game company of all time.
Oh yeah.
But they have been slow to kind of get into esports. I don't want to put you on the spot, but there was a controller as a prize.
I hope I get one
for for first place in a 3,000 plus person event.
Yeah.
How is Nintendo doing? Are they making a mistake? Are they slow to change? And also, as well, Japan, it's been criticized before for kind of being too insular. I love Japan, of course, and I love Japanese games, but they have a way of doing things, and they seem to be, particularly in Asia, they're the slowest to catch on with esports.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, it's no secret. Japan does not have, they don't have the best track record when it comes to esports. In Nintendo in particular, they've always been, Nintendo would always do things their way, right?
Right, and they've succeeded usually.
Yeah, usually.
Yeah.
Usually,
almost always. Maybe not with the Virtual Boy, but everything else.
That's up for debate too. I mean, everyone went to the CD-based architecture for a lot of games, and then Nintendo was still doing cartridges during the N64 days, right? A lot of people might say that's a hit or miss, but people have fond memories of it, right?
Right.
But it did not sell more than the PlayStation. I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
there was a shift. It actually left the door open for PlayStation to actually step in and kind of encroach on their grounds where they used to dominate.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
I don't think they're trying to be esports. That's the thing. Is like they are supporting events. They're allowing events to use their titles.
Yeah.
But they don't see the end goal as, well, first off, Smash Brothers Ultimate is like the best-selling fighting game of all time now.
Yeah.
I think that's been documented,
it's huge,
right?
And it's a very well-made game.
Oh, yeah.
The
thing is, they don't need to do that. It's more than just a fighting game to them. It's an experience. It's like they say, it's a party game as well. It can be whatever you want as long as you enjoy it. And I have to respect that, right? This is their baby. And anyone that has something that they create, they shouldn't have anyone else dictate what it is.
Yeah.
They're the IP holders. They're the guys that create the game. I respect their decision. I wish they were like other companies where they would be willing to put some money into the event to kind of reward the players that are supporting their game. But that's their prerogative.
Is it also a legal thing in Japan?
Because
there's some very odd laws about esports.
There are a lot of very particular laws, and it differs per prefecture, especially here, about what you can and can't do as far as issuing prize money. And this is something that we've been battling for the longest time.
Yeah.
Since the start of EVO Japan. We want to have this as kind of as much as the EVO event as possible. We want to be able to charge an entry fee to these players, but because of how the laws are structured here, we can't do that. And we can't use those entry fees to kind of feed into the prize pool.
Yeah.
We actually have to have a set prize pool from the outset and do things that way. And we have to also get approvals from the publishers and developers to kind of make this kind of stuff happen, because we need a license to be able to run their games. So there's a lot more red tape, I would say, in Japan to be able to do an event at this scale or like an EVO scale event. So and it's actually a lot more tough here, just because, like you said, there's all these companies that are gunning to have their game in the prime position, right?
Yeah.
They want to make sure that their game is shown in the best light, but there's only one best light.
Right.
So we got to kind of figure out how to balance that and whether or not they'll be playing friendly with the other companies that are going to be there.
Yeah, it's a weird situation, because no matter what, there has to be an order for which games go on stage. Mm-hmm. But do you find overall the companies tend to back off and kind of let you do your thing, or is there weird stuff where they don't want?
Mr. Wizard, Mr. Wizard, the founder of EVO,
one
of the founders of EVO, and the current president of Triple Perfect, he's one of the coolest dudes I know. And the only reason I say that is if a company were to kind of clash heads with EVO, mm-hmm. We wouldn't want to deal with that kind of stuff. We wouldn't put up with that shit. If they really want to kind of change what the community is doing and how we run events, it's something where we'll be like, thanks, but no thanks. We'll just do things our own way.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I love about EVO is we try to put the community first every single time.
How is it casting these events, and how did you get into casting?
Oh man,
because I remember it was a couple of years ago, but just tuning in to a Tekken tournament that I was, and I'm like, oh my god, it's Markman. He's casting. This is crazy. How did you get into that role?
I've always been very passionate about Tekken. I think it's one of those things that came naturally because I was part of the community, and when this started for fighting games, we just started. I guess more openly streaming and broadcasting these events, probably around 2009 timeframe.
Yeah.
And that's when these roles had to be filled. It's like, okay, who's going to talk about the game? Who's knowledgeable? Who can speak well on the mic? There weren't that many people. There still aren't that many people right now.
Right, yeah.
But it was the guys that were passionate about the game or that felt that they can really talk about the game. And I was just one of those at the start. So I've been talking about Tekken since like probably 2009 and doing
that's really your
stuff.
Game, right?
It's my favorite game.
Yeah,
it's my favorite game. I mean, I love all fighting games. The fighting game that got me into competitive games was Street Fighter, like many other people, right?
Sure, yeah.
Street Fighter, I actually probably owe most of my career to just because of the Street Fighter 4 stuff and all the stuff I did with Mad Catz.
Yeah.
But Tekken has always been my baby, and for the longest time, I did not want to work with Tekken. Like right now, with Tenno, I run the biz dev for Tenno. We work very closely with Bandai Namco for a lot of their tours. We help run the Tekken World Tour, Soul Calibur World Tour, Dragon Ball FighterZ Tour. I work closer with Tekken than ever.
Yeah.
But I never wanted to do that. I never wanted to.
What do you mean you never wanted to do
I never
that?
wanted to get so close to it where I might hate it.
Oh, yeah. No, that's okay. That's a very interesting point,
especially working with publishers and developers.
No, it's very, my view on gaming and the games is not mystical anymore.
Yeah.
It's very real. Or, I'm like, oh, that's the person in charge of this. Or, oh, this company actually is like that.
Luckily, I've been blessed by having good people on the Tekken project team and working at Bandai Namco, where I never hated the game. So
that's good.
It's a good balance. I've always been able to work with good people over there. So my perception of the brand and the series and just the community in general has always been a very positive one. And it's my love for the scene and the community, and just seeing how much Tekken has grown over the past few years. Tekken was one of those games where people didn't care if it was on or being streamed before. It was the game.
It always had people that were playing it.
Yeah, it always had people that were playing. There was a very core community. At EVO, it always have 200, 300 people. But now we're at 1,800, almost 2,000 people.
It's now the biggest. Excuse me. It's now the biggest fighting game, right?
I wouldn't say it's the biggest, but it's the one that has the most growth over the 3 years that it's been out on console.
Yeah.
And it's grown every single year. And I'm a pessimistic kind of person. I don't want to set my expectations too high. I hope it grows this year. I'm not counting on it, but if it does, that'll be a nice blessing.
It seems like Japanese games are making a big comeback.
Oh, yeah, fighting games especially.
Yeah, fighting games. The success of Dark Souls is another one that's been very interesting. For a while, it seemed like the U.S. companies were taking over, but it seems like we're having a bounce back where the Japanese games have really found their stride. Even with Nintendo and the Switch, I mean, they really nailed it.
Oh, the idea, the concept of just the Switch. I mean,
like
I
when you
take
look
my
at it,
Switch
you go,
everywhere.
Of course. Yeah, I have a Switch. It's like right up on this desk.
Do you
behind.
ever actually use it?
Yes.
I travel with it all the time just because I want to have it there. I don't get to play it as much, but I just love having the idea of having all my old games on there as well.
Yeah. I think there's something about. First of all, I think you have to get acclimated to trying to use it periodically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if you default to your phone or something else like that, it's easy to kind of not instinctively go to it. But if you look at the Switch, you think, of course, this should have been here all the time. Why would you not have a large enough screen to play games on? And then that is the console.
Yeah, for me, it's so cool because you could dock it to a TV and be able to play it like normally, if you were at home. And to be able to do that in like a hotel experience, that's like A+ in my book.
Do you play other games? Or are you mostly multiplayer?
I play. I'm not home enough. I only play games when I'm at home. And that's not a lot. So I try to keep up. These days, I try to finish. Shenmue 3 just came out, right?
Okay.
So that's a sequel to a very old game.
That was the original Shenmue was on Dreamcast, right?
Correct. So Shenmue 1, Shenmue 2 was on Dreamcast and also on the original Xbox. And then Shenmue 3, 18 years later or however long it's been, came out on PS4. I tried playing it, and I'm still trying to play it. I just haven't been home.
Trying to get through it.
I try to play RPGs when I can. I love Japanese RPGs. Chrono Trigger is like my favorite game of all time. I love like the old Final Fantasy games.
So good, dude.
It is so good, right?
For those that haven't, because I know there's younger people listening to this, but like that was the first time travel video game.
Yeah, and time travel is such I'm
a
interesting
big
concept.
I'm a big fan of time travel storytelling in general, and there's so many interesting. Like I don't think it was a big hit, but I was a big fan of Looper when that just came out.
Looper was great.
It was great.
Yeah.
I'm fan. Terminator, all this stuff. Not the new ones as much, but
yeah.
But I love that.
And how different franchises will treat the concept or the system of time travel. Because
there's always rules.
There's
always different rules,
Yeah.
and
I don't know if you saw that Van Damme movie Time Cop where
matter can't touch the same matter.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
that was
right.
crazy.
Time Cop, man. Oh man, and Van Damme's always doing the splits, and like they have to make sure he's doing the splits in every movie. Yeah. So, do you play Western RPGs at all? Like, are you a Fallout fan of like the old Fallout games?
I haven't played the new ones. I mean, everyone tells me I should get back into it. I mean, the last really Western RPG I played is probably Jade Empire. And Knights of the Old Republic, the BioWare stuff. So I like a lot of the old stuff. But man, I try to play at least one RPG a year. I think the closest to like a long game that I can like really dedicate myself to is the Yakuza series. I love Japan a lot.
Yeah.
And those games are crack to me. I love those games. Yeah.
I was really into Japanese RPGs when I was younger, and it's kind of tapered off for me a little bit.
I think for a lot of people. I
think that like when they were making JRPGs, they actually had the formula right, and then they started making the level up system too complicated. And I'm like, no, I'm not interested in this. Like for me, I just want to kind of commute through your story and and make some simple decisions. But yeah.
That's the great thing about a lot of the old games. You could actually do it in like, bite-sized chunks, but now you have to like, okay, wait, let me pull out my rule book. What do I have to do here and there?
Yeah. Or some of these games, like you'll have a phone, like people can email you in the game. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh,
that's too creepy.
Yeah.
I get emails
like in GTA,
all day for work.
Like my cousin's texting me to go bowling. I'm like, oh, fuck this. I have to deal with this in real life. I don't want to do this in the game.
Oh yeah, games are weird nowadays.
Yeah. But you said you're a big fan of Japanese culture. Did you grow up watching anime?
Yeah, I watch a lot of anime. I mean, not so much now. I try to read manga more often just because I could go at my own pace. But just Japanese culture in general, I love. I mean, I'm here like every single month, like I mentioned, and I'm a fan of how. I guess I'm a fan of history. I guess nostalgia, and I love shopping for old toys and old video games. I collect retro games, so I'm a fan of the past. I guess
I saw on your Instagram you put Panzer Dragoon Saga.
Yeah,
did you play that game?
I played the game way back in the day. Actually, I didn't own it, so I didn't own it until this year.
That's a very rare game.
It is.
It's very rare.
The last published and probably lowest print run for Sega Saturn games. So
yeah, it's a masterpiece too. It's absolutely incredible.
It's great. I played it on emulator.
It's a Sega Saturn game. So for people listening, this is like, first of all, you if you make the wrong game or you make the right game on the wrong console, it's like a dead language. Like you're not going to get this anywhere.
And also, I heard they lost the source code for that game, so there's no way they could port it or like, well, they'd have to recreate it, right? There's no way they can just port it. That's why we haven't seen it on PC. We haven't seen it on Steam. But thank God they're recreating the original Panzer Dragoon. At least, hopefully, that'll create a wave where
I've been a fan of that franchise growing up, but Panzer Dragoon Saga was just an excellent. I don't know if it holds up now because I beat it when I was in college, so that was maybe like.
That's actually been a debate in the retro community for the longest time, and especially recently. Is like, it was great back then, but it's probably not great now.
I've had this when I try to play GoldenEye.
Oh,
where it's like, one
analog stick.
Yeah, and like it's a slideshow. I mean, the frames per second are so bad that it's jarring. Like it's actually just distracting from the game. Where there's other games, Mario 3, you can just play that right now and it's fine.
I think that's a byproduct of 3D games coming into.
They don't age well.
They don't age well. At least not the early ones, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, that's why we see more and more of those games being remastered, right?
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Good times.
So, what's next for you?
What's next for me? So, currently working on a lot of big business deals to kind of help evolve the space within fighting games.
Yeah.
So I can't really say what it's going to be, but a lot of people will hear about it pretty soon.
Okay.
It's one of the things that I for me, my methodology and like what I like to work on is making sure that, at least for fighting games, the people that are working within it are the people that have been working within it, whether as a fan, as a volunteer at events, but the guys that are actually passionate about it. I want to make sure that these guys have opportunities to be able to work and build a career out of it.
Yeah.
So my team, the guys that I work with, are all people I grew up playing video games with.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to help bring in more people that have the kind of the like mind. I mean, I don't want to bring in suits from like some company that doesn't really care. Yeah. And
that's so weird when you're working with people. And you're like, you don't even like.
You don't
like video games?
Yeah.
Why are you here? Like
they're here for a paycheck.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so might as well give the paycheck to people that actually care and are passionate about it. That could really, when it's time to grow and evolve something, they can actually put in some real input.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I'm working on. I'm going to go to like another tangent now. I'm working on a dream project of mine this year. I think this year I've been blessed by so many opportunities, or this past year, that I'm actually working on something that I never thought I would be able to conceive, I guess.
Yeah.
And it has something to do with something that I'm really into, whether it's video games or sneakers or just, you know, like arcade sticks. I'm trying to marry all this stuff into one. So I got to figure out how I'm going to do that. But it's definitely lifestyle.
Tell me when we're done recording this.
It's definitely lifestyle.
Yeah.
But I'm working on stuff and trying to bring in, again, new eyes to the community.
That's really cool, man. Now I'm excited to end this podcast and ask you. So I don't normally ask this question when I'm interviewing people, but I feel like you're a guy who's done so many different things. I view you as a very authentic person and somebody who really, you're doing exactly what you like to do. How does somebody get into a position like yours? If you had to recommend the people that want to work in esports or gaming,
I would say you really have to like it first. First and foremost, if you don't have a passion for stuff within games, let's say if you really like, I'm going to use this example. If you really like creating things, and for example, my example was I really love, you know, controllers and making arcade sticks and stuff like that. If you really love that stuff, you have to learn it. You have to learn it to the best of your ability. You want to become an expert in your field, and you want to be able to not only be an expert, but let people know you're an expert. Yeah. You have to know how to, I guess, you have to know how to sell your shit. And if you can't do that, then you can't complain that you're not getting a job in the industry. You have to be able to sell your shit. And I think that's the most important. Obviously, luck is going to come into play. You have to know people. You have to know the right person or the right people to talk to. But if you don't know your shit, who cares about who you know, right? Yeah. So first and foremost, make sure you know your shit. Make sure you are passionate and you actually like it. I mean, people can tell whether or not you're just, you know, doing things to benefit for yourself or if you're doing things because you love it, right? Yeah. So I that's like really the only advice I have. I mean, there, like you said, and like we discussed earlier, there is no set path. There's no guidebook for this kind of things. Right. Maybe we'll hustle people down the line and we'll make a fake guidebook that's not going to work for people. Who knows? Maybe that's going to be a new strategy guide. Make sure you guys look out for that in 2030. But yeah, the only thing I can say is, like, if you're into gaming and you want to pursue a career in it, I hope you love it. If you don't, then you're probably in the wrong business. Yeah. Be a doctor or whatever.
Listen, man, thank you for doing this interview.
Yeah, no problem.
The tournament's done now, right? Or it's wrapping up?
It should be done. It should be done pretty soon, but I was glad I was able to catch up with you. I know we've been exchanging messages for the longest time, and I know you always appreciate fighting games, so thank you for always, you know, just being there. I mean, your influence goes a long way. I mean,
thank you, man.
You are an international, like, gaming icon, right?
Oh, I don't know about that, but thank you.
Well, international for sure. But you are a gaming icon to me. I mean, when I first met you, you were at the Mad Catz booth at an MLG event.
An MLG, yeah. I played Potato Head in Street Fighter.
You were playing Street Fighter, and I was like, these guys play Street Fighter? And I was like, okay, cool. They're one of us. They like.
Dude, I still have the stick you gave me, man.
Oh, wow.
I still have that in my house, man.
Awesome. That's a good feel.
Dude. All right, let's wrap this up. Thanks again for doing this. We just go to it after. We just talk for it's like goes out to 100 people for Patreon supporters. So,
cool.
All right.
Thanks for listening, guys. Again, if you enjoyed this episode, patreon.com/Tasteless Podcast. Your support is appreciated. We will probably be dropping another episode in a week. And from there, we will be delivering post-apocalypse episodes. So I'll be talking to people, and we'll be talking more about the pandemic and how this has affected the industry. I really thought that each of these episodes I was doing would be pretty timeless and wouldn't have to be so time sensitive. But I mean, this is basically the biggest thing that's happened in our lives. So I'm lucky in one sense that I was able to get a bunch of these before global travel was shut down. Since we're not having many people go in and out of Seoul, I don't have a lot of new subjects. But at the same time, it's hard. It's hard for me to put these out, knowing that a lot of you guys probably have coronavirus on your mind and want to hear conversations about that. But that's coming. Of course, we can't waste the episodes either. And the next one that we have coming out, I think, is my favorite out of all the interviews I did at the tournament. So I think you guys are going to enjoy it. Anyways, stay safe, guys. Wash your hands. I love you. Bye-bye. Special thanks to our top supporters on Patreon, Seth N., Rohit Somebody, John Kernicki, and Charlie Sheaver.